Yeah,
Sure. For the tens of people who know who we are. That's right.
So if you want some wetsuit pictures, just I'm in booth B1 and I'll just send them right to you. Yep.
What kind of pictures?
Pictures of like the wetsuits on the
Oh, no,
floor.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Careful.
Supermodels.
Well, that's what I thought he was saying.
Supermodels.
Hey,
wearing
whatever
wetsuits.
swings you change, you know.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. We
No,
do,
well-
well, no, it's just a YouTube channel, but we do live streams where we just talk.
Yeah.
Nothing,
Tell me the name again.
Open by chance. Actually, we have a card.
I didn't know if you had a
We have cards in the pocket there.
yeah, we have cards. And, but we do live streams and, you know, we
Other
have
pocket.
no format.
Yeah.
We just talk.
This is
We just-
everything from golden books, not to speak for them, but there's a lot of different things.
Yeah,
There's a
and
lot
then
of-
we'll do discussions about like, do you remember?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember going to the mall? What happened to the malls? What happened to Christmas? What happened to
Because
music?
it's also commercialized, which
Yeah.
kind of ties in with the whole
These are the cards I
purpose.
just said it here.
Oh, okay.
The whole purpose behind like what we were asked to talk about in the first place, which was toys then and now is what it says, and it's kind of vague, and it's kind of vague on purpose because there's so many different directions you can go in with all of that. We talk about a lot of that on the channel anyways, because you know, and it feeds in with the stigma, because there is a stigma. Everybody in here is older. Everybody in here is probably collecting toys, action figures, which is why they're at a toy show. And there's a stigma around that about, oh, you didn't grow up, and you know, whatever. People who, they didn't invest in what you're buying. You know, they didn't give you the money and say, here, Johnny, go out and buy this specifically, and oh, you're not adult enough, or you're too adult, as the case may be. But if you really think about it, when we were kids playing with toys, there were adults who were collecting toys. They just didn't collect anything that we recognized as at the time. When we were kids, they were collecting marbles, they were collecting tin soldiers, they were collecting wind-up trucks,
Yeah,
and
trains.
cap guns, yeah, and trains. And you see that also because we go to a lot of shows and we film the shows. We toured this one, and should be going up on the channel this afternoon or this evening. But we tour a lot of the shows, and we've been to specifically trained shows, and everybody there is very old.
Yeah,
For the most part, they're, you know, you're looking at like octogenarians. and
they are.
Yeah.
Trains and even GI Joes are.
It's
they're
getting
all
there.
at least-
Some
at
of
least
them,
50.
yeah, it's getting there. But they were collecting toys, and we didn't recognize it at the time because we were playing with it. And now we're kind of like transitioning into an era where people aren't playing with toys. You know, these younger kids, they're not interested in toys at all. They're they want to stare at their phone. They're not even really interested in the video games anymore, which was just breaking into our culture when we were younger. And even though there were earlier incarnations, Atari was the first one to really hit it with a home game system. And we're like, wow, 8 bits. Or no, it was 4 with Atari, wasn't it? 4 bits. And it's like, oh my God, because I think it wasn't 8 until you hit Nintendo. The Nintendo NES, which is still like my favorite operating system. Nintendo NES and Sega Genesis. I'll still default back to those because I have a bunch of gaming systems. I love that stuff, but they're not even interested in that anymore. They just want to stare at their phone all day and just do this. Don't even know what you ask them what they're looking at. I don't know. But they're not playing with toys anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I know I'm all over the place, but there's so many nuances to all of it. What's specifically interesting to me about that is that if you look back and you think about like when the action figure market first broke in, and G.I. Joe is a great example because they're really the ones that jumped that off and turned male dolls into action figures, because you could get a male doll, you know, if you wanted to play with Ken. He had a hunting outfit.
Not saying he had.
Yeah.
He did have a military suit, but it was an office military suit. It
That was like as an officer's
And he
uniform. That's
couldn't
right.
hold anything anyway.
Or he could be a pilot or something like that. But they said
the later ones couldn't hold anything either. They're like,
yeah, they had action figures. This figure does something more than just be a prop. It's
Yeah.
more than just a mannequin, and that was fascinating, and it still holds to this day. It still holds to this day. But back in those days, especially after it jumped off, you had the 60s. There's not too much in the way of action figures in the 60s, as I'm sure most of you know. And then the 70s, it really picked up steam. In the 80s was like the pinnacle, as it starts trailing off in the 90s. But they were targeting children, but they're still targeting that same demographic. They're not targeting kids anymore, these toy companies. They're targeting us. They've been targeting us for decades. They've been targeting us for 30, 40, 50 years with the same product, the exact same product. And I pick on them a little bit, but if you think about it, who are they really advertising to? Who are they really selling this stuff to when you have to like get on a payment plan to buy the stuff? Or like Mattel is famous for this with their Origins and their Revelations and all this other stuff. These aren't kids' toys.
No.
These are not children's toys. I don't care if it's hanging in Walmart. If you go in the action figure aisle, it's not kids in there. And they had the kiddie show that they took a shot at. I think it's already canceled, isn't it? The younger version, not Revelations, but they had a younger version of the show.
oh yeah.
And they had action figures for it, and the action figures, they look like anthropomorphized apes. You know, their body dynamics are terrible. Kids aren't buying those either. It's children buying that. Adults buying that stuff, and they know it. Mattel knows that. We are their target audience. We've been their target audience for decades. They're not even trying to market to kids. It's crazy. And so when you think about how that's changed, when they were always toy companies were always after kids, and then at some point it went through this transition where we're like, well, new kids aren't that interested. We'll just keep targeting the old ones, the kidults, as they like to call us now. And believe it or not, Mattel was the first one to figure this out, and it was in the mid-90s with Barbie. And a lot of people never made that connection, I don't think, that when all the other toy companies were still selling or targeting children back in the heyday of KB toy stores. I used to love KB toy stores with their clearance sales and their red lines, which was printed, by the way, that red line was printed on the price tag. It was not written on, it just made to look like it was written on. But Mattel figured out, okay, wait a minute, you know what? Adults are still collecting the Barbie, kids aren't doing it so much. And that's when you get like the deluxe Barbies. That's when you started seeing like $200, $300, $400 retail Barbies in FAO Schwartz and the Bob Mackie collection and things like that. They were the first ones to really get on board with that and realize, hey, you know what? The kids we were selling to as adults are still our main consumer. They're the ones that are still buying this stuff. Why don't we just
Tell Hasbro that.
why don't we just sell it to them?
Yeah.
Why don't we just sell it to them? Well, the problem with Hasbro and where that gets messy is that they're not listening to you. They want to sell it to you, and it's not just Hasbro, it's all of them. They want to sell you a product, but they don't care what you think. They don't even ask you what you think. They don't even ask you what you think. They don't want to know.
And when we were kids, you had a problem with your toy, your parent would write in, and they would fix it. They would change it because they wanted your parents to buy you that toy. But now, they're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Use a hair dryer, soak it in some water. But we're going to continuously raise the price on these toys, but the quality is going to go down. And enough complaints aren't going out there. We make our little YouTube videos and we complain
You
about
whine
it.
on,
We
whine
do-
on TikTok.
Yeah, you do your unboxing and you're showing everybody and the arm breaks off into your
Which
hand.
I have had happen
Yeah.
on unboxings on my channel. Like the most infamously recently was the Mondo 40th anniversary He-Man. Because I was all on board with Mondo up until the Hordak. The Hordak has a defect in his wrists. His hands don't stay on. Then She-Ra, her face is mashed in almost every package. It's crushed. The nose is broken. Or she was missing accessories. Then the 40th anniversary He-Man came out, and I was like, this doesn't look right. The plastic doesn't look like the same grade of plastic. When I pulled it out, he snapped clean in half. It's like, this is damn near a $300 figure.
Yeah.
What am I paying for?
And then they want to give you a gift card.
Yeah, like, give me a gift card.
You buy something you don't want.
They have a great video. That's where I thought you were leading into it. I'm like, okay, I remember talking about a similar situation to get something that's new and no one wants to take care of it.
Yeah, but if you go in this room over here, you have toys from the 60s, 70s, and they're still in good shape. You can move those arms, they don't pop
Unless
out.
somebody-
If they come out, they come back in. You had to beat those toys to death.
Unless somebody really tortured that 60s and 70s Joe figure,
Yeah.
they still work.
Yeah, you had to be brutal, but now you take it out of the package and you just pick it up like this and it breaks.
That's your fault. 'Cause you
Yeah,
didn't handle
they
it right.
blame you
should
for
have
it.
realized. I had somebody scold me in that video, in that unboxing, telling me that you should have realized that the temperature change from when you picked up the package before you unboxed it, and you should have left it for a while to reach room temperature. And it's like, I waited 2 days to do that unboxing,
Yeah.
first of all, so you don't even know what you're talking about. And then, why should I have to wait?
Yeah.
Why? What am I waiting for?
And
What
if
am I?
you do, put a warning label on it.
Still.
Yeah, something.
Even still, these are the same companies that will sit there and have slogans like "Buy collectors for collectors" and "Where collectors come first." You're not collecting anything, we are, and you're not listening to us. You don't care. Back to G.I. Joe, comparing and contrasting even Hasbro in the discussion. Why is there a swivel arm battle grip on our Raw figures? Because the straight arm, because originally it was a copy of the Mego body type. They ripped off the Megos. When you put a gun in their hand, if you tried to make them hold it, the thumbs would snap off. And people wrote in and whined about it. Hey, I just bought this figure, the thumb's broken. What the hell, Hasbro? So they created the swivel arm battle grip. Even the first run, that's why it's split. You got the straight arm and swivel arm for the very first run of those figures, because they were like, we better get on that
Yeah.
before people aren't interested in this anymore.
Yeah, they cared back then. So when you wrote in, they fixed it because they wanted your repeat business. Now, nope, we're gonna.
Oh, they'll suck it up.
Yeah.
And people, unfortunately, collectors have been conditioned to just suck it up. They're just sucking it up. It's like, what happened? And I get, I do the unboxings. Oh, well, you know how delicate those are, or you should have used a hair dryer. You should have boiled it in water. You should no. How about the company should have some kind of quality control to realize, you know what, the elbows on these keep breaking. Maybe we ought to fix that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. To this day, Mezco figures still fall off of their stands because the pegs don't fit right.
Yeah.
They still, you haven't fixed those in 15 years. You're not going to. The paint still chips off of NECA figures.
Yeah.
The elbows on the female classified figures still break. I've heard a lot of complaints about those on the female figures. Oh, they snap off. Or Mezco, the knees break a lot on those figures, especially female figures, because they're so thin. We're not going to fix it. You see that in the blind boxes too.
Package and worship it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, basically.
And you paid a lot for it. And
Yeah.
I had a big discussion on the channel about that with the with quality control, because I have a background in manufacturing, and I used to work for Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, and they make you sit through a seminar on quality of the three aspects of what a good product is in manufacturing, and it stands for all aspects of manufacturing, whether you're talking about consumer goods or edible goods, you know, food, products, whether you're buying a chair, an action figure, a lamp,
A car.
yeah, or whatever. There are three things in manufacturing, and they drilled this into us, you know, before we even started working. You know, you go through weeks of training at Frito-Lay because they don't want you to mess up their equipment. It costs millions. But there's three aspects, and you can give a customer two. You cannot give them all three because of the dynamics of manufacturing. But if you're not giving them at least two, you're ripping the customers off. This is the rule, and I've talked about this many times. You have availability, because there's tiers. So you have availability, which is also speed of manufacturing. Can we get it done fast, and can you find it? So speaking of chips, if you want a bag of Doritos, you go to the store and find it. They crank that stuff out constantly. It's there. Overall quality, not just the quality of the taste, but the quality of the materials, the quality of the packaging, the appearance of the packaging is all quality. Does it look good? Does it taste good? Is it presented well? All of that is the quality. And then there's price. Is it a fair price? Now, from Frito-Lay's perspective, they say, and they run 24/7. The factory never closed down, except for like sanitation in certain departments. We'll get it done fast and you'll find it. We'll use high quality ingredients, a quality bag. It'll taste good. Price, you're not going to get the price because we're giving you the other two. Then you look at Walmart, who is, believe it or not, Frito-Lay's biggest competitor because they counterfeit all their chips, okay? It's on the shelf, it's cheap, quality's not there. Does it taste like a Dorito or does it taste like something else? You eat a Walmart chip and you're like, it's okay, but it's not as good. So they're giving you the price and they're giving you the speed and availability. Are you getting any of those three from any modern action figure manufacturers?
None of them.
Are
Because you
you-
have to pre-order,
Yeah.
and you wait 2 years, and then you get an email.
Is it
saying it's
available?
delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it like oh, who was it? Big Chief Studios. I think you probably saw that one. The Big Chief Studios with the Tom Baker Doctor Who. And they had so many delays, the Federal Trade Commission ordered them to refund everybody their money in the United States because it was over like 2.5 years, and they were still making excuses and sending out emails. So they had to refund me my money. I never got it. But
What about startups? They have to refund your money?
Yeah,
I think they do.
Everybody does.
Yeah. If they
you
can't
have to
do it.
If you can't deliver
They're
by a
supposed to.
certain time.
They're supposed to. And that gets sketchy when it's an independent and it's not like a big company that you can sue. But it's not available. It's either going to take forever to get it, or they're creating an artificial demand environment by trickling it into the stores and then making you wait and buy it on eBay for 3 times the price, and then dumping 1,000 of them in there, and then nobody wants it and it ends up at Ollie's for $3.
Yeah.
They'll make a figure that people like.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't find it.
And you can't find it. They'll make a figure that nobody gives a crap about, and they end up in the bargain bin.
Yeah. So it's not available.
Yeah.
The quality's not there because they figure you're going to buy it anyways. You want it. You're a completist. You can't help yourself. It's like crack. And the price keeps going up. The price
Yeah.
keeps going up. I can't justify anymore, and that's another reason why I got off of really modern figures altogether. I really kind of backed out of it. The price keeps going up and you can't justify it. And then I make the comparison between, like, say, something like Hot Toys and 3-0. I'm like, how come 3-0 is able to put out licensed product 6-scale figures for $100, $125? You know, because their Power Rangers are like $100 a piece. You know, the deluxe one was $125 for the Green Ranger or whatever. And if this was Hot Toys, it would be like $285, something like that. You're charging that much because you can, and people will make the argument, oh, well, the sculpt. Yeah, the sculpt's great, but what about the rest of the quality? What about the paint application? What about the packaging? What about the fact that I unboxed an Iron Man figure and his arm fell out in my hands?
Yeah.
You know, this thing is damn near $400.
That tooling thing is a lie, because they'll say, oh, we gotta make special tooling for it, and then that's why it costs so much, but then they'll make something else that, like Power Rangers, like Hasbro Power Rangers.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, oh, special tool, we gotta quadruple the price, but they can kick out Power Rangers, you know, and different tooling on those too, some of them, you know, I don't know if that's the best example. I've seen them do that where the G.I. Joes are sort of hard to find. They're not super hard, but, and they're gone down now. They're at 22 instead of 24, so that's a little good. But you can't find certain ones. But then you go to the second stores, the second-hand stores, and there's Power Rangers, you know,
Yeah.
and you know they made plenty of those. Or the Star Wars are a good one example of that. They make new Star Wars with brand new tooling, and they make thousands of them, and then nobody buys them because they're boring support figures.
And then they plan ahead to reproduce those anyways. I mean, how many, especially Star Wars, how many different packaging variations, how many times they repainted it, how many times did they reuse certain parts of it, and then, which is fine if you're going to be honest about it. I mean, you saw a lot of that with the Mattel Masters of the Universe. They reused a lot of that stuff because, especially when you're first getting started with it, you want to keep it as cheap as you can. All right, fine. But, you know, what was the expression? Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining?
Yeah.
I think.
But another thing that we see is different. When we were growing up, one company had
Oh, that's
a
right.
toy line.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Hasbro did G.I. Joe.
And that's it.
But now,
Yeah.
how many people own G.I. Joe? You got like 10 different companies, and they're all making the same, and they're all making the same
It's
figure.
slightly different
It's-
in its
yeah.
own way,
Super
but
Super 7's G.I. Joe was crap. I mean, I'd be embarrassed. They're like the 12-inch ones that Hasbro makes. You know, they created the first real action figure. Now they've moved like a robot. Now
Yeah.
Super 7, what I like about Super 7 is the oddball ones they make. Like I'll buy those, you know, the little high, like the
They're based off
worst.
Cartoons, not off of the.
oh no, yeah. Well, still, there's still no excuse for them. They charging you $20 for a figure that moves like a Star Wars figure 40 years ago.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's what they're angling at, though. That's why they call it a reaction. It's like a retro
Yeah,
example. Oh, this is what it looked like
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
were a kid.
And just like they say, Hasbro will say, or Kenner, whatever, same thing. They'll say retro figure means they aren't gonna make a figure worth of crap.
Yeah, or vintage line, which I
Yeah.
hate because then if you're trying to do a search for an actual vintage figure, you get snowballed with 50% of them are modern figures made to look old. You know, which I can't stand.
You know, Bobby Valla from Valaverse had an interview on one of the YouTube channels, and he brought up a very interesting point, was that Hasbro has the license for G.I. Joe, right? So it's internal. They don't have to pay royalties, unlike other properties like Star Wars or something else where they have to pay, you know, Disney basically dictates how much of the royalties they want out of it. The thing is that, yes, they could make G.I. Joe cheaper, but one of the things that he pointed out was that all of a sudden now that would cheapen the brand, so that even though that the Black Series figures are, let's say, $25, you know, on $30,
Yeah.
if they put out a $15 G.I. Joe, all of a sudden it makes their brand G.I. Joe look cheaper. And so in order to maintain the brand value higher, they got to price G.I. Joe at $25 or $30 so that it maintains the brand value versus that. So as
Sounds like a scam to rip you off.
it does sound like it, but in a way it kind of makes sense, but at the same time it's not very consumer friendly.
Yeah.
Well, it goes right back to what David and them started talking about, is that what is the consumer, right? And that's an adult, because, you know, you go on that toy aisle and you know, I don't collect Black Series, I know people who do, and the large figures that are a $25 figure.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, a similar figure of a newer line was $14. So it went up $10. So I agree that it may cheapen the brand, but what it gets back to is that circle is they're branding it for people like us in this room that will pay the $25.
Yeah, they know you
It's
got
not the 8-year-old coming in there wanting to buy it.
And we understand.
Because I wouldn't buy that for an 8-year-old because he's going to break it anyways.
Yeah.
So,
We
yeah,
understand licensing. We understand licensing costs more.
sure.
But and there's other companies like those Alien Predators, that off company. Those are great. For
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the ones at Walmart,
Those are great. Yeah. Well, they don't have them right now, but they've had them in the past.
Lennard or something.
Yeah. They made good stuff. They made crap. You know, depends on what mood they're in. But the
But they
aliens
know
and the-
when they get these lines, you're gonna look at it, oh man, I remember that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I sat down, me and my sister, and we watched this, or me and my friends played this, and that's all they want. Because as soon as that eye get big and start twinkling, they know they got you. Because now you hold it in your hand, you're walking down memory lane, and you walking out of the store with that figure. And they don't, and you're not thinking about quality at that time. You're not thinking about the price at that time.
Yeah.
You're thinking about when you were 8 years old and your mama bought you this and you went outside and you went to your friend's house and you played with it. And once you get home, then you're like, what? I paid $45 for this?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Then it hits you. All of that goes away.
That's that Flash Gordon Phantom series. I was hooked. And they're really
sure.
not that great. Wow, Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Phantom. I'm the only one that cares or knows about it.
Yeah, and you
It's like,
remember
wow.
watching the cartoons
Yeah.
and all of that.
Especially when they did the when NECA did the tribute to the
Yeah.
'79 Filmation
You
cartoon.
can still find that in the store. I'm waiting for
Yeah.
Walmart to knock it down.
Yeah, really.
It's been sitting there for 2 years.
When the staff, I'm sure it should have been marked down. They don't blanket the way Walmart does it. It's got to be done in the store instead of being done automatically.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to get around to it, and it could have been marked down like months ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, instead of they got to get out of 5 of them standing in the corner hiding from work and complaining about their hours.
Yeah.
To,
'Cause
to
the movie was, it was okay.
cheesy '80s fun.
Compared to the comic strip and the cartoon, it really kind of lame. But I mean, it was okay, and it had the colors and everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the comic strip or even the cartoon.
Well, the '70s. The '70s Filmation, the first season was fantastic.
Yeah, the second season was awful.
Well, second
Trying to
season,
be Hanna-Barbera.
yeah, basically when they brought in the character aimed at kids,
Oh, that
the
little
dragon,
flying
Zabadi.
elephant or
Do you
whatever.
want to kill it?
Yeah, yeah.
Zabadi,
Yeah,
yeah.
that first season was great.
Yeah.
It all ran together, a good
And it felt like
storyline.
a Buster Crabble. You know, they even did the daily intros to catch you up and everything. It was
The movie serial was better than the movie.
Yeah.
Watch the whole movie serial. And the Phantom, I mean, you don't see him period much anyway.
well, those are all dying franchises,
Yeah, I know,
anyways. They
That's
all
why I know
are.
when they
Yeah.
bought them.
But a question we asked, and we did a video on it, is kids today, what are they gonna have in 20 years? Like in here now, we have the stuff that we had as a kid and we look for it and we go out and buy it. But children now, in 20 years, what are they gonna go back for? Are they gonna go back for the latest iPhone 13 or what? You know?
They could have framed phones on their wall and a tablet.
Yeah.
Have chips in their head so they can turn it
Yeah.
on and space out when they're too old to do anything else.
There was a cartoon with a comic strip, a cartoon I saw with it was an old woman and a little girl sitting on a park bench, and it was supposed to be set in the future, like 2085 or something. And she was like, "Would you like to see what I had for lunch on 2019 August the 4th?" You know, and would scrolling through her phone. And that seems like that's kind of where we are. And I was talking with you actually earlier about Rob Van Winkle and the was it you? Or I was talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody.
No,
about
that
Rob
was
Van Winkle.
Marcus.
That was Marcus. That's right. But that Rob Van Winkle Vanilla Ice, in an interview like about a year ago, made a point that the kids today, they get nothing. There's no nostalgia. There's nothing for them because nothing culturally significant has happened since 2003 with the invention of the iPod. When the iPod came out, it's like, wow, I can put 300 songs on this.
Yeah.
You know, and what's happened since? I don't know. I don't know. What are they what are they growing up with that that they can cling to? Because with the idea behind the nostalgia is the innocence of it. They don't have that. They don't have that. They don't even know to look for it because it's being stolen from them by politicians, by
Social media.
social activists and media. It's being stolen from them. So one thing Greta Thunberg said that was true. You stole my childhood. Well, in her case, she sold it, but the childhood is being stolen and nobody seems to notice. Where's the innocence? Where's the running out and playing? Where's the using your imagination instead of following someone else's? Because modern video games, it's a storyline. You're following a storyline.
Somebody
That's
else's story.
someone
Yeah.
else's
Same thing with
imagination.
licensed toys. I mean, you're not really, you're using
Yeah.
some imagination, but you're basing it on, like, G.I. Joe has no name. He's whatever you want him to be. Barbie has a name, but she's whatever you want her to be.
Yeah.
Of course, now this movie, now everybody's gonna make her like that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not really a kid's movie anyways. I'm sure everybody's figured that out by now. They did a good job hiding it until they released the film, but it's not really a kid's film.
Yeah,
But
it's still a lot of hidden messaging.
yeah.
I mean, you're saying about kids not having things, like, a lot depends on, like, when you let your kids have phones and
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
games and things. I mean, my children are now 20, 22, and 25. But when they were little, as a costumer, I always made them costumes for things. So they had, like, their early costumes, and so for nostalgia for them, it's like, oh wow, Mom, I remember wearing this Princess Leia.
Sure.
I remember wearing this, and they, you know, we had lots of things at home for them to do pretend play, because role playing is so important for
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just having some of those things. Yes, we have to play kitchen and the dishes, and, you know, my husband, as a joke collector, had, we did have to stop them from playing with the vintage things, although I actually let them play with some of my vintage Barbie things. It's like, oh, okay, for a little bit. But, you know, he had these, like, I guess they're like remote control Jeeps. Like a big Jeep, we had a Schwimmwagen. We still have them. We had a tank. So literally the kids, they would get together, go out in the yard, you know, we had Barbies and Joes all over the place. You know, they were running the tank around the yard. We took the Schwimmwagen to a swimming pool and let it float in the pool. So, you know, if you can hold off getting them some of the video things,
Yeah.
which is probably harder now because,
Yeah.
you know, mine were young. You know, when I was young, you used to go to like an arcade to play video games.
Yeah.
You know, but then they have it on their phone or they have it on game systems. So
Yeah,
it's
and the
just-
parents,
it's not all what you make it. You know, you can try to hold on to that for them.
as
if
long as you
possible.
can.
Yeah.
But that requires the interaction, and you don't see a lot of that from modern parents, unfortunately. This is a pacifier. You know, here,
Yeah.
take this. And it's nothing irks me more than seeing a little kid in the supermarket, 2 years old, in a shopping cart like this.
Yeah, or at a restaurant, during family time, or even at home, at your dinner table. Do you even eat dinner together? When I was a kid, you ate dinner at 6. Everybody sat to the table at 6 o'clock and
Yeah.
you ate. You talked and whatever, but
Yeah,
that's
I
what
have
you
to
did.
say,
It was no,
no
but
devices at the table.
yeah, but we didn't have devices to
Yeah, we
bring.
didn't
But
have devices.
yeah, you
But-
came to the table at 6 o'clock and you ate, and that was it. And everybody
Yeah.
knew that. And the only exemption is if you were working. That was your only exemption. But now, oh, here, go put something in the
Take this.
microwave. Go down to the fast food restaurant and eat. You know, we give them a cell phone at 2 years old, and then they're sitting
Yeah.
there
And what else are they supposed to know to do?
Yeah.
You know, you don't interact.
Scary, too.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a background on that too, because I used to, way back in the day when I still lived in Kansas, I was the director of a daycare, and then I was the director of a YRC2 for the Juvenile Justice Authority, which is it's a halfway house, basically. It's a nice way of saying a halfway house. It was residential teenagers transitioning from actual corrections back to society. And you see a lot of that. Even then, you know, what 15, 20 years ago, you've seen a lot of that. The kids have been reduced, unfortunately, to being roommates for a lot of parents.
Yeah.
They don't interact here. You know, you shuffle them off to school, and then sooner or later, maybe they'll come home, and then they're off to their room, and they'll find something to eat, and this is normal now for a lot of families, unfortunately. But the interaction is paramount.
But back to toys and what
back
happened
to
to toys.
We try not to get too political
Yeah.
on the channel, but yeah.
You know, you have to see, I was thinking about what are the things that we had for them. Do we want to save? Do we not want to save? So, you know, that also becomes a question. What is savable? What is collectible from what they had? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know.
Hold on, she has a question right here.
Oh, it wasn't a question, it was just
Oh,
a
come-
comment.
Oh, okay.
We watched that series, Blue Bloods on Friday nights, and everyone acts like it's the weirdest thing for the Reagans to sit down on Sunday all together at the family table, no cell phone, and they're just talking and they're eating. And everyone around them on the show acts like this is just the strangest, weirdest thing. I don't know if anyone watches that show, Blue Bloods, but they do. They act like this family dinner that they have on Sunday nights. It's just, it's strange.
Well, tragically, in order to sit there and interact with a group of people, you know, in a family structure, you got to know each other.
Yeah.
And these kids, these parents, a lot of them nowadays, they don't know each other. You know, unfortunately. But they'll tell you, "Oh, I do everything for my kids." Oh, well, I beg to differ.
But back to toys and collecting.
to-
Yes,
I was
I'm
gonna
good.
say that there is a little bit of shining hope. I work over at the university, and the kids, this generation of kids that are coming through the universities, believe it or not, there actually are people who are now looking at engaging in things like Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop gaming.
Okay.
There's been a resurgence of Warhammer and Warhammer 40K and stuff, and also by interacting with us old folks who have, like, for instance, in my office, I have Star Wars paraphernalia. So things like when they come down and check out equipment from my room, they sit there and they see, like, I got a life-size C-3PO head that's animatronic that I work on the side, and they're blown away, and it gets them wanting to have a conversation with me and talk about film theories, special effects, toys, anything that they want to do, and it helps open them up to have conversations. And I think that's one of the problems that we're facing is they're so involved to their phones, they're not wanting to have conversations. Because when we were kids, we would go down and hang out with our buddies and say, "Hey, did you get this latest action figure? Hey, can we schedule to come over to your house and we'll have a play battle or reenact a movie scene or something like that." And having conversations with these new generations, it would help them to try to bridge that gap that new technologies that's kind of played a wedge into. And
Yeah, because it interferes with it. You don't know how to interact with a person.
yeah.
This is easier. I don't have to worry about what you think or anything. I can just type on this and then, like it or don't. And then, but you don't know how to interact. I've seen a lot of that with younger people too. They get confused.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Well, with respect to toys, this is kind of, I grew up in the 70s, and I remember how toys were fun, and then they got crap because of the fuel crisis. We're running into that now too. I mean, the toys aren't really, because there's less fuel to make the plastic with, they're really not making as good a figure. Or if they make a good figure, they charge too much for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're using cheaper materials.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just an excuse or what you were touching on earlier was with who was manufacturing what. I mean, it used to be
Yeah.
made right here,
Yeah.
Nothing's made here
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
for Timmy Toys. That's
and
it.
then it was one company. It wasn't one. It wasn't somebody franchising out all over the place like Ninja Turtles. Who's making them? NECA and Loyal Subjects
Yeah, Playmates
and
is still
3-0
making
and
it.
Playmates and I'm sure there's a couple more I'm missing.
Super 7.
Yeah, Super 7 is making them. G.I. Joe's another great one. Even Migos doing G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Migos making
Eagles
them.
actually all right. They're making decent stuff now.
Yeah, and they're cheap.
Yeah, they're much
They're
cheaper.
really cheap.
Yeah.
They're cheaper than ones that don't have clothes.
Although their construction's not that great, because I've heard some complaints about
Well, they
them
never
breaking up
were.
easy.
They're Migos.
Yeah.
And then another thing we talked about, and you actually did about a decade, is some vintage toys that you can find that are cheaper than modern.
We did a whole
toys.
series on that on the channel.
We did a series
Just
about
because it's
that.
rare does not mean, what does rare quantify as? Is it
Yeah.
expensive or is it just, we haven't seen it?
Yeah, rare doesn't
Mm-hmm.
equal
Old He-Man, nobody
value.
really cares about those anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now when they got these newer ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we did. I did the 70s, because 60s you really can't, because there's not that much in action figures. But I did 70s, 80s, and 90s action figure franchises that you could collect that are cheaper than their modern counterparts. Like the one example, it's a great one, is the who was it? The Playmates Ronin Warriors. Playmates Ronin Warriors.
Oh,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
you can still pick them up for $50.
Yeah.
The modern ones, because they've had a resurgence of those figures, $175 a piece, and they're in the same scale.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the Playmates ones myself,
Like the Shadow, I completed my Shadow from the 90s.
Kenner Shadow, yeah.
Kenner
Yeah, yeah,
Shadows.
yeah.
You can buy the action figures for around 20
Yeah,
and the
or less,
vehicles
yeah.
for about between $30 to $50. So,
Yeah.
people will say, well, I buy the modern because the vintage is
I can't
so
afford the
expensive.
vintage.
Yeah, but that's
Depends.
not always. Now, some.
Yeah.
Masters
Yeah.
of the Universe, some G.I. Joes, Star Wars, they get out there. But some toy lines are actually
cheaper, way cheaper,
fairly cheap.
surprisingly
And
cheap.
I think your target was what, under $75?
Yeah, well, it changed by
$50.
decade,
Yeah.
because the further back you go, the more wonky that's going to
Get a
get.
Shadow figure
Yeah.
for that price.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
seen them. They're not really. I had those.
Yeah.
Because I like the Shadow. I like
Mm-hmm.
those old pulpy characters,
Yeah.
and I think I still got them. They're just not much fun.
Well, the swamp thing. So like she's
Yeah.
got the whole Swamp Thing line. I mean,
Yeah.
you could still pick the figures up for under $20, most of them, and
Yeah,
they
that one
look
could
look great.
honestly be fun.
Yeah, and the play sets and everything, the most expensive piece was one of the play sets, and that was $75.
Sealed.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
all sealed because everything was in the box. So I mean, you can do it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to put in some work because you got to look
Run
for it,
around.
of course.
You
And,
can't just shop on eBay because you'll go broke.
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's not.
That's another whole video.
yeah,
There's
Yeah.
not a demand for a lot of those, so nobody shows up at the shows with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people want the big sexy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want the Transformers. They want the Ara's hot, really hot right now.
Yeah,
They want
He-Man.
the He-Man stuff. They want the early Ninja Turtle stuff. So that's the stuff that makes them think I can't afford this stuff. I can't. Oh God, look, this figure costs $1,000 or whatever, or 70s and 80s Star Wars carded stuff. Yeah, that's real expensive, but there are really inexpensive alternatives that are vintage that could be just as interesting. And this, we got a lot of feedback on these videos because people were like, I forgot about that toy line, or I had those, or whatever. I want to look for that now. I didn't realize those were still so cheap. Things like that, that stands out.
I wonder if Heroes in Action are cheap. I know they're not online, but I wonder if they're cheap.
It was like last night when we did the toy swap. I got one of those play sets,
Yeah.
and people were like, "It was welcome back card."
Yeah.
People were like, "I've never seen that. I didn't even know it existed." Now, it doesn't mean that it's rare.
yeah.
It just means that Mattel made a very, very short run of that
Yeah.
because that show didn't last very long, and that gets back to where we talked about, where y'all were talking about,
And they're not expensive. The play sets are expensive. Accessories are expensive, but the actual figures, although it's tough to find a good card because the cards are terrible, but they're not that much for a 70s action figure.
Like 15, 20 bucks, you know, unless
Yeah.
you just get somebody that thinks that theirs is gold plated, but yeah, you can get them.
Yeah. Who needs a good card? You're just gonna tear them out and play with them anyway.
But I guess that's what I was, back to your point is that where it doesn't mean that it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, that I get more enjoyment out of something. I've never seen that. We open it up to look at it, and because I didn't have one when I was a kid. A lot of the things that I have.
Yeah. And that's part of the appeal too as an adult, is like, you know, sometimes a lot of the collecting, it dives off into something that you wish you had.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I would have bought this when I was a kid. I'll get it now. You know, why
Yeah,
not?
Now you got a job, you got some money, so
Yeah.
I can afford it now.
Buy devices.
We couldn't get it as a kid.
Yeah.
So, and that draws a lot of people too. And with that too, you think, well, I'm not going to be able to get that, so I have to get it now. And then you go to eBay and they have it on auction and you overbid, or somebody got a really strange price on it. And
That's money laundering. That's the money laundering price.
then you buy it. You buy it because you're like, I'm never going to see that again. So
Why is this $12,000 and all the other ones are $30?
Yeah. You talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I know they have the new animated movie
Yeah.
that's out. So a lot of that I think helps feed it too.
Yeah.
Different than what it did when we were younger. When we were younger, we saw it on the television.
Yeah.
We wanted to do what they did on television, so you would ask to get the Sears catalog and go through that.
Yeah.
And I think now for adult collectors, because I got friends that are like, you want to go see the Teenage Mutant Ninja? I said, no, I don't want to go see a cartoon. I mean, we want to get a grip and we're just going to go hang out. Yeah, I'll go watch it. I'm not going to wait in a 2-hour line for it.
I don't have
Even if it was a non-animated movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also, a lot of the modern adaptations, they just don't hit the spot anyway. You know, they've lost track of, and I think we did a whole video discussion on that too. That they're looking at it in terms of a franchise directly instead of a cultural phenomenon, which is what they were. Star Wars was a cultural phenomenon.
What did they destroy that?
Yeah, you know, any of those. Indiana Jones was a cultural phenomenon when it came out. That was in the theater. I don't, you know, some of you guys are probably old enough to remember. It was in the theater for 2 years. You could still go to the movies and see it.
Yeah.
You know, things like that were cultural phenomenons. G.I. Joe, any of those. Masters of the Universe. Now they look at it and say, wow, they made all this money on this franchise back in the day. Let's try to tap into that again. And they don't look at what made it so significant in the first place. They lost sight of it. And so they just throw something out there, and then everybody's like, this doesn't match. This doesn't make sense. Even people who never saw it before are aware that something isn't fitting right. You know, it just doesn't fit. And I've used the example of
Disney.
Star Trek. Oh, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is a great example of this.
That was funny.
The greatest Star Trek film ever done. Wrath of Khan. So popular, it jumped off Paramount making TV shows again. Star Trek The Next Generation happened because of the success of Wrath of Khan. They said, hey, we got to keep this going. Let's start making shows again. The chief writer from that never saw Star Trek. So he said, I really don't want to mess this up. Let me go and watch every episode of the original Star Trek and feel it out so that I can put out a good product. So, and then when he saw, what was it, the Demon Seed or the Seed, for I think was the name of the episode with Khan, Space Seed, thanks. That he saw that and something touched on him with it, and he was like, I'd like to follow that up. I wonder if Ricardo Montalban is available. And guess what? You got the best Star Trek film ever done. And nowadays, nobody's doing that. They're like, oh, what can I do with this franchise to make money? I don't know. Let's make this up. And just completely forgetting about where it came from. Altogether. And like I said, even, or we're going to target a younger audience, and let's make everybody younger. And do they not remember when they were kids? Did they like or care about the snarky teenage character in the film? Who did you care about? You cared about the adult character because that's who you wanted to be when you grew up. It's like, what are you doing?
I don't know why they picked Benedict Cumberbatch. There's nothing median looking about him. But what the funniest part was when Spock said, I was cracking laugh for 5 minutes on that. when he said Captain Kirk.
Oh. Well, we got to start wrapping up for the next.
Yeah, we have to leave it
panel.
open for the next panel. We're getting close. We don't mind.
Yeah, we enjoy talking, but
absolutely.
there's a panel coming up right after this, and we don't want to be rude.
We don't want to run them over.
And run into somebody else's time. But thank all of y'all for coming and your input. We enjoyed it.
And please do check us out on Open by Chance. And of course, we do. We haven't done any in a few weeks, a couple months actually, because we've been doing back-to-back conventions. Because we tour the conventions, like we toured this one yesterday, and putting the video up on the channel. So we do live streams usually on a Sunday or something.
Yeah.
And we interact directly. You know, we don't.
Yeah, we don't ignore comments.
Yeah.
We
don't have
and
like
we interact.
12 little boxes and everybody's breathing at each other, and then the comments are flying.
Give an update on the console televisions.
Oh yeah, we bought a floor model.
Not
TV.
even. Not
it
even.
Was free. We didn't buy it. It was free.
We went to an estate sale.
Yeah, it was free.
And the price was right. It had a big sticker on it that said free. And I was like,
Move this thing out of here.
let me plug
Yeah,
this
that's
in.
what she said. Exactly what
Because the thrift stores won't take them anymore. Thrift stores won't take those anymore. 'Cause they won't take cathode ray TVs because they don't want to deal with them. Even though they'll tell you something right there. Why does that TV still work and my flat screen's dead in 2 years?
Yeah, my flat screen now, we bought
It's
it.
got a line on it.
It got a big line going down the middle. It's like, what's up with that?
But it was a big old floor model, wood
with
paneling and
wood grain.
everything.
Yeah.
Plugged it in and it works. And it's
We
like,
had it.
let's take it home. Let's take it home. But
We don't know where we're gonna put it.
we got to work it into the museum room.
Yeah, you got to.
For those of you who aren't aware, because people ask us all the time where our store is. We don't have a store. That's our collection room. That's our museum room. It just looks like a store because we use store fixtures to display everything. But we're gonna work it in down there. Maybe hook up the old Atari or Nintendo
gonna watch
NES to
TV
it.
on that.
Get a big old VCR.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get a VCR and buy some VCR tapes.
And I haven't done it yet because we did one show on it of bringing it back. Where we demonstrate like some vintage item that you might remember or never seen before. I found a portable VCR television combo in this massive backpack from back in the day. It's got the big box like this. You put the cassette in, and this little tiny screen like this that's built into this big block. It looks like a cinder block, and it's all in this backpack unit that I was gonna.
And it works.
It works.
Yeah, the VCR, the TV, everything works.
And I got to do a video on that, showcasing that.
But
And
the
I was
flat screen TV got a line in it.
I was gonna do the console TV when we got it in the room. We just don't know where we're gonna put it yet.
Oh well.
But yeah.
It's in the garage.
Please do join us on Open by Chance. We'd love to have you. We have some cards here if you want to find us.
If you want to find
If you
us.
want to check it out. And we'll go ahead and, because we're almost right at the hour, and I know they got something coming. But yeah, thanks a lot.